Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is our 5th meeting, and in this recording we are going to discuss communication station scenarios. We are going to continue the other different types which we didn't mention earlier. So in this recording we are going to discuss breaking bad news and critical incident. Both they have common features. One of the main common feature between both, that even critical incident is considered breaking bad news, because you are giving news which maybe you are expecting that father will not be happy with. So, anybody taking care of the kid. So, regarding breaking bad news, so the main thing in breaking bad news, that unfortunately most of candidates, they change this type of conversation or this type of communication scenario into information giving sometimes, okay, and sometimes to ethical dilemma, like discussion of withdrawal of support, which is not actually the task in the scenario, and sometimes they change it into consent taking, okay, which also is not the case. So I have to focus, that's why I have to focus very well on the task. If we will give example, so let's say Muhammad, who is having recurrent chest infection, admitted many times for hospitalization and noted to have dialogue recently, and in the last admission they not increased white BC's count. Then they offered bone marrow biopsy to the family, and it was done, and you are going to sit with the parents regarding the result, as it's suggestive of leukemia. Okay, so in such case you are going to face the family with information which is you are expecting that they are not going to pleasant with, and this is the first time for them to know the diagnosis, especially that this type of investigation is informative and conclusive. So in such case, from the task you can understand that your station is breaking bad news. Okay, so the other information which we want to focus after you recognize very well that the task is about breaking bad news, the other information in this station, you are not expected to give bulk of information to the family, because in this station it's all about how passionate and how empathic, okay, you are with the family. In this station, the examiner will focus on your facial expressions, your voice tone. You are not asked in this station to give, as I mentioned, bulk of information. In this station you are expected to listen as much as you can, even if they are not talking or are not speaking. There will be lots of pauses in which neither the parents are speaking, and you are also expected to respect these pauses, because it will be a trick from the examiner, and he's actually instructing the role player to take the full time whether crying or not responding, and they will test actually your patience. So take care of that. Don't try to rush to complete your informations and think that time is running, I have to finish the task. Okay, so let's say that after you greet the family as usual, the first steps, and introduce yourself. Dr. Ahmed, pediatric registrar, one of the team who's taking care of your son, Muhammad. Okay, and then you will ask about the background or what they know so far. So you can ask them, what do you know so far about Muhammad's condition? Okay, and then they will give you similar information like what's mentioned in the scenario. Okay, and then they will end by they convince us to do like sampling of the bone marrow, and is the result released or not yet? If they didn't ask, you can ask them, do you have any idea why we are arranging this meeting? Okay, and then they will say, okay, we are expecting that the result of the test done is released. Then, now, don't try to consume more time. In breaking bad news, you have, unfortunately, to tell the bad news, and then you are going to absorb the shock, okay? And as I mentioned, it's all about how to show how passionate and empathetic you are. So you will tell, unfortunately, we did the blood test and it shows that Muhammad is having blood cancer. Okay. Sometimes they are considering leukemia, despite that most of the population nowadays they know that leukemia is the blood cancer, but again it depends on the mentality and social, the level of education for the family. So it's more safer to say blood cancer, and then you will just give them the full time needed to receive this bad news. So you are not going to tell any more word. What's expected in this scenario, whether they will say like what, and then they will enter in denial, like, are you sure? Is this a final diagnosis? Is there any chance to repeat? In such case, usually, if we did bone marrow biopsy, so we did before blood film and we did CBC, and that was actually, it depends on the histopathological examination if they are sure from the result. So we are not going to repeat. So you have not to let them hesitate or having like hope about repetition of the test. So you will tell that was the most accurate test we do in such case, or this is the conclusive test we did, and all other investigations or tests were suggesting, and I'm afraid to say that this is the diagnosis. But before you break the bad news, you can like say before that, Muhammad, he's doing fine now and we are taking care of him. The result of the test came like that, and then you, like, it's just trial to let them know that his current condition is okay, he's not sick. Okay, so if they are going to say, okay, are you sure about the diagnosis, all this stuff, as I mentioned, you will tell them, yes, this is conclusive. But the good thing nowadays that medicine advances, nowadays we have good treatment results for this kind of cancers, and we can follow up, and there's very good success rate in such cases, and we are going to refer him to the oncology, or not oncology because they will not understand, but we will refer Muhammad, or you will refer you to the team who's responsible of taking care of blood cancers, and they are going to follow him up. And in similar cases, there is a good chance for survival, and maybe we will arrange an appointment with the team, and they will talk to you about the management plan in such case. This is like a straightforward scenario for parents who are seems to be understanding the situation. But sometimes if the examiner wanted to be more tough and more difficult, so he will ask, let's say mother is the role player, so he will ask her to cry, and she will shout and say, oh, how come? No, I don't believe. That means he will die. Like this, okay? And she will start to cry. In such case, as I mentioned, don't try to continue whatever you are telling. Even don't try to, sometimes some candidates try to be more passionate, and then they try to calm her down by touching, or by and this is not allowed to touch the role player at all, okay? And the other thing, you can provide tissues, okay, or you just show that you try to provide tissues. And in this scenario, actually, some trainers in centers, they advise to ask from the beginning if the mother or the father wants somebody else to be with during this conversation. But it's again a bit tricky, because if she asks it, so why you want somebody to be with me, and then you have to say okay, I just in case, so she now starts to be more anxious, because she is expecting something bad to happen, okay? So, and then your communication station starts to be more stressful and out of your control. So in such case, I prefer to ask her if she wants somebody to be with her or somebody to be with him once you break the bad news. So now she's going to cry, and you are going to offer tissues, and don't try to continue whatever you are telling till you know that she stopped crying and she's ready to receive more information. So you can tell then, okay, shall I continue? You want me to proceed? Okay. If she said okay, so you can continue and say that okay, but the good thing nowadays that this type of cancers are well treated and we have good survival rate, and be sure that we are going to take care of him. He will be under our follow-up, and also the team is going to take care of him. Let's assume that mother said, it's very common and a tricky question, if she said, is he going to die? I know I have one daughter of my friend, she had similar disease and she died. Then in such case, it's a very tricky question. So don't say no, she will not, and also don't say she or we will die, because unfortunately some candidates did the same. So you will say there are a lot of differences between diseases, and what may happen with your friend's daughter. Maybe it's different. So, and also, as I told you, we have great advances in medicine in treatment of such kind of cases, and be sure that we are going to take care of him. Okay? We are going to offer all whatever needed. You are not alone, all of us with you, all these comforting messages. And as I mentioned, don't try to say no, he's not going to die, and don't say also yes, he's going to die. Okay, so answer usually will be like this. Then you are not expected in this scenario to dig in details, like to tell her about how is cancer and how it develops, the change or mutilation of the cell nature, and this the etiology and all this stuff. Usually in breaking bad news, the reception of the mother for your information will be like almost 20%. Okay, so in such case you have to offer another meeting with the consultant when she's in a better condition, and maybe that time she will have somebody with her, and then you can provide her with more details, and you can even offer, I'd like to talk to you more about the condition, but maybe you are not now in a condition which allows you, so maybe we can arrange another meeting, especially at that time one of the cancer team will be available, and if you have any questions you can ask. Okay. And also in breaking bad news, you are not expecting mother to summarize. It's not like information giving. Information giving, you can ask her to summarize the meeting, but in such case, she will not be in a mood to summarize or to understand, and you are not going to test her understanding, only the thing that she received the information about cancer, and if there is any further work you are going to do, you focused on arrangement of another appointment, refer to the cancer team, and also you are going to provide her with some leaflets and websites, and also you are going to offer, if she's having any questions, she can contact you. Okay. Again, it depends on the task. If she asked, if the role player asked about why she had cancer or what's the reason, okay, so in such case you can tell that it's not a clear factor, it has like multifactorial causes, and we cannot say per se that this is because of inheritance or because of any thing. Some in our population, some people have a tendency to develop cancers, and also there is some environmental factors. But anyway, the good thing that there's, as I mentioned again, there's good advances in medicine, especially in treatment and medication. Now there are a lot of modalities. We have what's called chemotherapy, okay, through giving medications, and maybe next appointment with the cancer team, they are going to tell you about the treatment modalities. In this case, you are not also expected to tell her about the side effects of chemotherapy, unless she said, sometimes mother, she say, you mean cancer, so she's going to lose her hair, she's going to be thin, and in such case, if she said like this, you can tell that we should balance things. But again, in case chemotherapy is the point of discussion, which I don't think so, because in such a scenario, if you are going to talk about chemotherapy, usually it will be like consent taking, okay? So then you can tell about the chemotherapy side effects and how to overcome, and the balance, why we are using, and why we don't have other alternatives in such case. So don't try to change the task from breaking bad news to consent taking. As I mentioned, it's tricky breaking bad news, and don't try to also, if the situation is different, like stage 4 cancer, and she's for palliative care, and you're asked to sit up with her about that you are not going to offer, the situation will be totally different, and it's about withdrawal of support, and there are criteria for withdrawal of support we're going to discuss later in ethical communication scenarios. But again, as I mentioned, you are going to listen to her, okay? You are going to accept long time of pause in which you are not going to speak for her, and you're just absorbing her shock. You are going to provide her with, you are going to arrange appointment with the team responsible for taking care of blood cancers. You are going to summarize, and not to ask her to summarize, and to provide her with materials, and greet her and thank her for listening. Okay, I hope that scenario is clear. Okay, and we can take many other examples, but this is very famous scenario. So it can be consent taking if the situation is similar, like there was increase of white disease count, blood film also is indicative of leukemia, and you are taking consent for bone marrow biopsy. Then there is great difference. This is consent for test. So then don't mix it up and turn it into taking bad news as well, because still it's not confirmed. Okay. So it can be consent taking, it can be ethical, and it can be breaking bad news. It's all about the task. That's why, as I mentioned before, the first step is to read the task and then read the scene. I hope that this is enough for breaking bad news. Now we are going to discuss critical incident. Critical incident also is a very common scenario, and it can be difficult. It depends on how are you going to control it. There are some steps which usually we have to follow. Again, we have an approach for each type of scenarios, as I mentioned, and the main points we have to be aware about that we are covering in critical incident we are going to tell. So let's say critical incident for a patient, okay, who had abnormal movements, which is query seizure, okay, and it has a typical nature. We cannot say that these abnormal movements are, febrile seizure for a baby who was 4-year-old, okay, and the neurology team, or the team who is responsible for such kind of diseases, we asked for brain imaging. So let's say the baby name is Haytham, okay. So Haytham was a candidate for brain imaging, and the team gave him sedation for just to ensure that quality of CT will be accurate and to be trustful. So after they gave the dose, they noticed, or after double checking, they noticed that they gave like 3 times the dose, okay, 3-fold, and he was sleepy. He had bradypnea, okay. It required some ambu bagging and let's say that he was giving midazolam, so the team had to give him annexate or flumazenil, which is the antidote, and after that he starts to be fine, awake, and everything was okay. So you are going to speak to the family regarding what happened, okay? That will be the task. So you can recognize here from, maybe it will not be clear from the task, or there will be clues, like, so you're going to speak to the family about what happened, so you have to read in the scenario what happened. In such case, there is a mistake happened in giving a medication, okay, with 3 times the indicated dose, and there was a side effect happen because of that, which required intervention, and now his condition is fine. In such case, the main point which we should focus on, as I mentioned before, in breaking bad news, to be passionate and empathetic. In this, you have to show your apology to the family, and you have to repeat your apology many times in the scenario. You have to absorb their injury. Okay, so let's say that you are going to start with the first 2 steps, greeting, okay, and then introduction of yourself, and then what do you know about Haytham condition right now. Then they had, like what's mentioned in the scenario, he had like abnormal movements, and as per the consultant, he asked for a certain test, which is brain imaging, and we don't know how is he now. How is he? He will ask you. The first thing is to say first, especially in this type of incidents, you have to insist on that he's currently fine, he's okay, his condition is great, we are controlling his seizure, like that. And then you are going to tell, okay, I'm going to tell you about what happened during the test. Actually, after we gave the medication, we noticed that he had reduced respiratory rate or respiratory effort, and required introduction by using ambo bagging. Okay, maybe he will not be familiar with ambo bagging, but he retained his breathing by introduction with certain help by certain device, and we had to give a medication to revert the action of the drug given. Okay, so usually you are not expected to continue the sentence, okay, because once we tell him that he was given a wrong dose of a drug, he's going to rush, and he's going to be very angry. He may even start to shout, something like that. So again, you have to absorb. I'm sorry, I apologize for what happened. I'm afraid to say that he received the 3 times the acceptable or the indicated dose, but the good thing now, you have to always to insist that he's fine right now. And in such cases, in critical incident, you are not expected to tell about mistake happened without ensuring that the baby condition is okay and well controlled and well managed. Okay, so usually we don't tell that till we are sure that his condition is fine. So again, you will say that I'm afraid to tell that you received 3 times the dose, but the good thing that we interfered and we managed to give him some support with a certain device, and we give him also the drug to revert the action of the drug. And you know that because he will say, so what you give him this drug? What was the indication to give? Why you give the drug which caused such thing? Okay, so we have to insist that we have, usually, if you are going to tell them, you explain, so you will say, to ensure the better quality of brain imaging and to trust the results, usually he has to be calm, not moving, not crying. So we have to give him something to settle him down. Usually in similar cases we gave and nothing is happening, but unfortunately he was he was administered with the 3 times dose, and this drug, unfortunately, if given 3 times dose, it may cause like decreased respiratory effort, and this is the most common side effect in such type of drugs, and sometimes sleepiness and less activity and all this stuff. So if you mention the drug, you have to mention why we give and the expected side effects and how we can control. Then if there is any leveling of the drug in the serum, we can do. If we are talking about paracetamol, for example, if we are talking about phenobarbital, for example, okay. So I have to tell about the antidote, and you have to tell also about that we are going to observe, we are going to keep him under monitoring, we are going to watch vital signs, and we are going to ensure that he's in a good, stable condition. Okay. And it makes sense that you have to try to absorb the anger of the parents. Then he will say, okay, I want to know who committed this mistake. And this is again a very tricky question. I want to know. In such case, you are not allowed to mention names. You will say literally that this is a system error. Okay, it should not happen. And usually, for giving any drugs, we are checking the dose before giving, and then the nurse is double checking the dose with the other nurses and give. But unfortunately, that happened. We are going to analyze that. We are going from our side to write incident report, and that will be revised by the quality team. And from your side, you can write a complaint if you want to know why that happened, and that will be also helpful for us to improve our quality of care and to avoid repetition of such mistakes. You have the full right to complain, and I'm going to tell you about any updates. If we had meeting about this quality, we are going to tell you about all updates and feedbacks. And I will happy to receive also feedbacks from you how to improve our quality of care. Okay, so this is the second trick. Okay, the first trick to ask you who did the mistake or who committed the mistake. Second trick, okay, that you have to offer them to the right to complain, and also that you are going to write incident report. Okay. The third trick that he may insist, he will say, okay, how can I trust you? I don't feel safe here. What guarantee that he's not going to have similar mistakes again and again? I want to take him, I want to transfer him to another hospital. In such case, you are going to say, I understand your anger, and I apologize again on behalf of the whole team taking care of your son, but for the sake of Haytham, I think it's not the ideal decision to take him to a different or another hospital, at least now, because we want to take care of him, we want to ensure that he's okay, we are going to monitor him, and he's totally fine for the last 2 hours, and we are observing him. If he insisted, then you have to offer him that consultant will sit with him and he will answer his questions. Then finally you will summarize, and again it's more reasonable to summarize yourself, not to ask him to summarize, okay? And also show apology and tell him that you are going to feed him back about any updates from the quality analysis for the incident report. Okay, I think that's fair enough for critical incident. You can, as I mentioned, you can take example for any mistakes because of medication or because of intervention. You have to mention regarding medication, why we give the medication, okay, what are the side effects for this medication, how we were able to overcome what happened, the side effects, okay, and if there is any leveling in the serum for the medication, and the antidote, if it's there given or not, and to insist on that the stability of the patient himself. And then, as I mentioned, the incident report part and the complaint part, also to insist that it's not individual person error, it's a system error and it should not happen, and discussion of such mistakes by incident reporting or by complaint is helping us to improve our quality of care, and insistence to keep the patient under monitoring to ensure that he is stable, and then to summarize and thank them. This is enough for today. Thank you for listening, and in next recording we are going to discuss ethical communication scenarios and other miscellaneous. Thank you and goodbye.